through my slides. So what I would like to talk about is we're going to just go briefly over the authorizing legislation. I'll talk about the guidelines that we shared with the national program leaders, the review template, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. So just at a high level, NIFA's roles and responsibilities are primarily to provide leadership and guidance for these plans of work. We don't dictate the content in those plans other than what's required by the authorizing legislation. And really, our posture or our philosophy is that we want this to be a collegial process. We look, if there are differences, we'll hope to negotiate them with you and your administrators and to reach a mutually acceptable compromise. So we want to be a good partner in this
I'm sorry
process.
to interrupt. This is the interpreter. Someone put in the chat, I know you can't see it, that they can't see the interpreter anymore.
Okay, I don't know how to fix that.
I don't know how to fix it either.
I will fix it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
They certainly don't need to see me. It's much more important to see the interpreter. So, okay. So, yeah, I talked through that. So here is a list of some websites that have the authorizing legislation. And it's really important that the national program leaders understand what's in the legislation. Much of this information is available on the NIFA website. I put that site there. It's also important to read the Federal Register notices. Those will give notice of a request for input or final rules on interpretation of the legislation. There is some information in the award terms and conditions that's also helpful. And then the NIFA Federal Assistance Policy Guide also provides NIFA's interpretation of the legislation and how we do, and the policies we use to implement the legislation. So it's important that, that national program leaders are aware of all of these documents. So here is the legislation that underlies the plan of work. It's the AREERA legislation, or the Agriculture Research Extension and Education Reform Act of 1998. And this is what requires the states to submit the plans of work in order to receive federal funding under Smith-Lever Act for extension and Hatch Act for research. And then we also use the National Agriculture Research Extension and Teaching Policy Act of 1977, and that provides the authority for capacity funding for 1862s and 1890 land-grant universities. So I'm not going to go through the legislation in detail, but really AREERA pertains to Smith-Lever 3B and C for 1862 extension, Hatch Act for 1862 research, and that includes Hatch regular and Hatch multi-state. And then for the 1890s, it's Evans-Allen for research and 1890 extension funds. So the plan of work should cover both research and extension activities. In general, the states that have both an 1862 and an 1890 are required to submit one plan of work. And there are 5 states that have an exception to this. So in these 5 states that are listed there, the 1890 land grants can submit a separate plan of work. But again, the plan of work should cover research and extension. And states are required to submit this plan of work to receive capacity funds, and it has to be reviewed and approved by NIFA before those funds can be released. So AREERA defines essentially 5 sections of the plan of work that are required: executive summary, merit or scientific peer review, stakeholder input, and critical issues. It also requires information on multi-state and integrated activities, but states submit that information on a supplemental form, and that information is reviewed by our awards management division, AMD. So national program leaders do not review information on multi-state or integrated activities. Okay, so the executive summary, as you probably know, provides an overview of planned activities that will address critical short-term, intermediate, and long-term agricultural issues in the state during the upcoming reporting year. And I'll just say, based on our review of the annual reports, this executive summary was very helpful to all of our new national program leaders who, may not be familiar with administration of these funds at land-grant universities. So they really enjoyed reading those executive summaries, and they learned a lot about your states and how you use these capacity funds. So thanks for all the work you did on your annual reports. The merit or scientific peer review process should provide a brief statement on these processes that you use at your institutions that will guide resource allocation and programming decisions. Now, we realize you've been doing this for more than 20 years, and these processes may not change much over time. So if you've not made significant changes to these processes during the last year, please just enter no significant change and only put text in there if you have made some change to these processes. The national program leaders have done a good job going back and looking through your previous plans of work to see what these processes were if you said no significant change on your annual reports. So they're interested in these processes, but if you've described them previously, then you don't have to take the time to put in the same information that you're still using. There are definitions for merit review and peer review. I pulled these definitions from that NIFA Federal Assistance Policy Manual. So that's the definitions that we're using for these processes. Stakeholder input, again, this contains 4 specific sections: actions to seek stakeholder input, the methods that you use to identify stakeholders from which you're going to collect input. And I would say this is an important, it's an area that NPL or NIFA in general is interested in. How do you decide who's a stakeholder, and what methods do you use to make those decisions in terms of who is a stakeholder? I know there's many stakeholders in your states, but it's important for us to understand who you think is a stakeholder and who you're going to listen to. The methods you use to collect that input is also needs to be described someplace. And then how you use that input. You go to all the trouble to identify stakeholders, to collect input, either by surveys or focus groups or listening sessions. And then how do you use that information? This is really helpful for national program leaders to understand those processes. Again, you've been doing this for 20 years. Your processes might not have changed much this last year. So if you've not made changes, please just enter no significant change, and you don't have to go into details. If you do put text in here, make sure it does describe a text that has been changed. Make sure the text does describe a change that happened in the last year, just to avoid confusion. We also ask you to describe critical issues, and these are issues defined by your state. The legislation says that all land grants within the state should share the same critical issues, but we realize that 1890s might have different stakeholders and might have different issues. So the flexibility here is that not all land grants are required to report projects or programs for every critical issue. So that would allow the state to have the same critical issues, but not all institutions have to report on the same critical issue. Again, they should describe short, intermediate, and long-term agricultural issues. They should be identified based on stakeholder input. And then your planned research and extension programs and projects should address these critical issues. I think we've told you to identify 5 to 7 critical issues, but that's just some guidance. And we do ask that you associate your critical issues to at least one of our science emphasis areas. And again, if you haven't made changes to your critical issues, just say that, and you don't need to put a lot of text in that box. So this is where the NIFA science emphasis areas are listed. These do cover the broad portfolio of NIFA programs. Okay, so the specific guidelines that we told the NPLs to use as they review the projects are listed on this slide. It's pretty straightforward, I think. We're basically looking for evidence of expected future accomplishments. So this is what your plans of work should describe, what you expect to accomplish in the future. And so we're going to be looking at, are these expected accomplishments feasible? Do you have this, the resources, the staff, the capacity, whatever else you need to accomplish those expectations? And then will those accomplishments address the critical issues and the stakeholder needs that's been identified by your work in the state? So again, for 3 of these categories, if you haven't made any changes, you can just say that, no significant change, and you don't have to spend a lot of time on it. The national program leaders have gone back to look at your previous plans of work. Those are now all available on in the REIS database, and there's the website where those previous plans are available. Okay, so we're going to use the plan review template, which is a fillable PDF for the reviewers to complete this year for each of your plans. Each text box is going to have a space specifically for comments on research and extension components. And I'll just say one thing we noticed in the annual reports is there often was not as much emphasis on research accomplishments as there was on extension. So, and sometimes the NPLs miss that, right? If they're new, they read what was there and it sounded pretty good, so they approved it. And now we're going to make sure that they do look for plans for both research and for extension funding lines. So there's no character limit in these text boxes, and you will get a read-only copy of this review document when it's approved. So just as a reminder, it should be obvious, but if your state has both 1890 and 1862s, then the national program leaders need to provide comments on 4 funding lines, right? For research, there's Evans, Allen, and Hatch. And for extension, there's 1890 extension and Smith-Lever. Okay, so this is what the review template looks like. This is the first page where they'll enter the name of the institution, the name of the national program leader, and the final approval date. This first section says plan overview. I think it's much like the executive summary. So they can check approve or return, and they will enter comments specific for research, as well as comments specific for extension. The next page, I can't see this because my little Zoom bar is up there, but I think this is the merit and peer review process element. So again, they can check approve or return, and they'll be looking for comments both from the research. They'll be evaluating your merit and scientific review process, both from the research and extension component. But again, if you've not made changes, then just say no changes. And then this is the stakeholder input evaluation page. So there's the 4 criteria that we listed, approve or return, and then they should provide comments both for research and extension. And then the critical issues page, we did not separate this based on research or extension because the critical issue relates more to what the state has decided on, and we're going to be looking for short, intermediate, or long-term critical issues here. And the last one is just a general recommendation text box, just to provide some overview comments and an indication if it should be approved or returned. So it's very straightforward, I think. And then these will be uploaded, I believe, into a SharePoint site and sent back to you with comments. So just to summarize, we have reminded national program leaders to review the authorizing legislation or relevant federal register notices and then that NIFA Federal Assistance Policy Guide to provide some background information on these capacity programs. We'll be looking at 4 sections to review: that executive summary, merit and scientific peer review process, stakeholder input and critical issues. And we're looking again for plans for your research and extension programs supported by capacity funds for the upcoming year. We'll use that template, fillable PDF template. These are the 4 funding lines we'll be reviewing if you have 1862 and 1890 institutions. And we do have the same state assignments for national program leaders. Those are posted on our website. I'll just note that since we reviewed the annual reports, 2 national program leaders have left NIFA and 2 new national program leaders have joined. So we replaced the 2 that left with the 2 new national program leaders. And so everybody has 1 state to review for plans of work. And we are involving the division directors in this process again. So this should be seamless to you, but the national program leader does prepare their review and send it to their supervisor, who's a division director. They will review and approve the review NPL's comments. And sometimes they send them back and ask the NPL to consider additional things, or I know when I was reviewing some of the ones I saw did not contain comments for the research accomplishments and the annual reports of accomplishments. So I sent those back to the national program leader and asked them to encourage those types of comments before. We'll see what happens this time. I think that's all I was going to say there. We do have to have these plans reviewed and approved by the end of September. And that's to make sure that your first quarter fiscal year 2023 capacity funds are released on time. So that's our goal. Of course, it requires that you get those plans of work submitted so that we have a couple days or weeks, hopefully a couple weeks to get them reviewed. September is a really busy time for NIFA because we're trying to get all of our competitive grant money, 1-year funds especially, that needs to get awarded by the end of September. All of that has to get out the door as well. So September is a busy time at NIFA. Okay, here's some of the list of the acronyms I've used in case you're not familiar with those. And this is our non-discrimination statement. I think you've probably all seen this. USDA is an equal opportunity provider, employer, and lender. And now I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have, if there are any. Looks like there's let's see, should I go to the chat or the Q&A?
Well, Deb, it's Alexis, and I'll just chime in real quick because I got a lot of the same questions. So if you don't mind, I'll just make one clarification because it sounds like a lot of people have the same question. So just to clarify, like we mentioned in the last webinar, yes, you all can put no significant changes. That is what will be uploaded into NRS. So we're trying to give you the option because we want to reduce burden. So if you would like to put full text, you're absolutely able to do that. I will mention that in institutional profile, the examples that I saw, it was not normally, people were not usually putting no significant changes. So it does seem like it would be unusual from what was done before, but we're giving you the option to say no significant updates if there are none. So it's a choice. You are absolutely able to put full text, but again, just trying to give you the option so it can reduce the burden. I also got a question on the Excel template versus the fillable PDF. And so Deb was talking about the fillable PDF because that's what the NPLs will use to put their comments in, and then we'll send that to you all with the comments completed. I just wanted to chime in really quick with those 2 answers that kind of came in through the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deb, for that informative presentation about the NIFA portion, the review portion of the plan of work. And thank you, Alexis. Alexis has been on the Q&A, and we will pause to address those comments as we receive them. Up next, we will be having our demonstration of the critical issues, adding, update, and close out by Jen. Jen, let me pin you.
Can I just add one point of clarification? You do not put accomplishments in the plan of work. Somebody asked about that. The plan of work is strictly your plan for the next year. The annual report of accomplishments is where you put your accomplishments. So please do not put accomplishments in your plan of work. Sorry for the confusion.
No, thank you for the clarification. All right, Jen, take it away.
Thank you, Joy. Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Mosqueda. I go by Jen. Today, I'm going to show you the slim version of the POW.
Jen,
Please
can you pause just 1 second? They said that they lost the interpreter again.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I don't know who was fixing that last time.
I think it was
can
Joy.
correct it.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry
Okay.
about that. Thank you.
Would you like me to continue? Okay, and just let me know if you need me to slow down because I am a bit of a fast talker. So apologies ahead of time. Again, good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Mosqueda. I go by Jen. I'm actually here to show you the managing critical issues, which is the slim version of the POW. Please keep in mind that while we're going through this, that this is just the slim version. You'll actually be able to experience the full POW version in a future release. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to share my screen first. So if someone can just confirm that they can see it, I would greatly appreciate that.
We can see it. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. All right, then. So first thing is first, managing critical issues is part of the POW slim version, as I stated earlier. In this version, you will be able to add a critical issue, edit a critical issue, update a critical issue, close out a critical issue, and reactivate a critical issue. So I'm actually here in one of the lower environments. I'm going to log in as a California user. So I'm gonna enter my user ID as like I normally would, enter my password, and then click on login with password. Okay, once I log in, it takes me to the NRS dashboard, which depends on your role is what you're going to see here. So in other words, when you log on to this dashboard, the amount of tiles and the buttons that you see on this tile will vary based on the role that was assigned to you when you registered with NRS, right, and EOP. So with that being said, I'm logged in, I believe, as a director for the Regents of the University of California. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard, and then I say to myself, okay, well, I need to add a critical issue, right? So if I need to add a critical issue, you would click on the manage button of the POW tile. So I'm going to click manage, and then it will take you to the plan of work dashboard. Again, this is the slim version. So from here, I'm going to click the POW title link, and it'll take me to the Manage Critical Issues page. On the Manage Critical Issues page, I have critical issue cards, and each card will tell you if the critical issue is active. Up here in the top left corner, it'll tell you the name of the critical issue, when it was last updated, when it was initiated, the term length, the description, and the science emphasis areas, along with the update issue and the closeout button.
Jen, I'm sorry. We've had a request for you, if it's possible for you to zoom in a bit. It's a bit hard to see your screen.
Okay, yeah. Sure. Is that okay?
Yes, I'll let you know if we have any additional comments. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Okay, So I think I left off at update issue and closeout button for each critical issue card. Down at the bottom of each critical issue card, you'll have 2 links that's called the research projects with the number of projects associated to that critical issue and the number of extension programs related to that critical issue. When you click on the link, for example, the research projects 48 for endemic and invasive pests and diseases, it'll take you to what we call a research project modal. In this research project modal, you'll see here the title of research projects, you'll see the critical issues and the number of projects associated to those critical issues. Then for the rest, on the rest of the page, you have what we call project cards. These project cards have the project title link or the name of the project, the number of results, the name of the organization, and the project director. At the end of it, you'll also have an icon. When you click that icon, it'll actually open up a new tab with the individual project view that you'll see here. If I go back and I click on the project title link, I also get the same results, right? Let me just close this out. Yep. And then when I want to exit out of the research projects modal, I would just click X. And the same thing with extension programs, right? Click on the extension programs. It'll open up the extension programs modal. And then you'll have here extension programs, the critical issue name, the number of programs related to that critical issue, then the project card, which is, it'll show you the project title link, the results, the organization, and the project director. Same thing. When you click on this icon, it'll open up the individual program view in a different tab. And if you do the same thing by clicking the project title link, it'll take you to the individual program view. So just close this out so I can have a little bit more space. Okay. When I click the X, it'll exit me out of the extension programs modal, and then it'll take you back to the manage critical issues page. On the manage critical issues page, like I said, you have all the critical issues that are associated to your state here. Are there any questions on the manage critical issues page? I guess I should ask Joy, do we have any questions around this?
No, we don't. We do have a request, and I'm not sure if this is related of, can we also review how to attach a program to a critical issue for those of us who have projects that are not associated with a critical issue yet?
So, okay, so programs that do not have a critical issue yet. So, okay, so very good question. Thank you for asking that. We actually will have that feature, not with the last release that we had, but in the future release. I'm not sure, I think it's in September, but the team is working on that right now and trying to associate projects and programs that do not have a critical issue. Did that answer your question?
Yes, we don't have any further questions or comments at this time.
Fantastic. So I'm gonna proceed. I'm gonna continue. All right. So I want to add a critical issue now. When I want to add a new critical issue, I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of the page and click Add New. When I click Add New, NRS will route me over to the Add New Critical Issue modal, I guess you can say, or pop-up. Where you will need to enter a title, the description, science emphasis area, and the length of issue. So as you can see here, there's a character limitation of 175 characters for the title. So if you try to exceed 175 characters, NRS won't allow you to do so. I'm just going to enter test here, webinar, and then we'll do 4.0. Just going to copy that, and I'm going to enter the description here. As you can see, you do have a soft count of 8,000 characters. Let me go ahead and just open my little cheat sheet here. actually. 2, 10. Oh, excuse me. All right, so you have a soft cap of 8,000 characters and you have a hard cap of 10,000 characters. Once you exceed 10,000 characters, you'll actually receive a validation message here that states maximum character limit exceeded, please remove content. If we were to remove 1,000 characters, you'll receive another validation message that'll state you are approaching the maximum character limit. And then once you get below 8,000, it'll go away, okay? Now I'm going to select my science emphasis areas. So I'm going to select first 3, and then I'm going to select my length of issue. So I'm going to click short term, and then I'm going to click save. Once I click save, I'm going to find my critical issue that we created, which was 4.0, and here we are. This is the critical issue that we just created together. You can see here it's active, test webinar 4.0, the term length, last updated. This is the description here, along with the update issue button and the closeout button. And the science emphasis, give me 1 second. And the science emphasis, some science emphasis areas down at the bottom, along with the research projects and extension programs links. Obviously, they say 0 right now because we haven't created a project or a program with this critical issue. Are there any questions around adding a critical issue? Joy?
We do not have any questions that haven't been addressed, but I did want to clarify that this critical issue update is available now. This was made available, and that we did get a few comments about repeat critical issues on their dashboard that was addressed with the latest release. So please let us know if you are still experiencing any issues with that by contacting nrs@usda.gov. But that should have been fixed with the last release, and the critical issue update that you are seeing now is available. Thank you.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to move on to updating a critical issue. So as a California user, I want to update this test webinar 4.0. So how do I do that? I'll simply click on the update issue button, and then it'll pull up the update critical issue modal or pop-up screen. For this, I'm just going to put 4.5, and then I'm going to select an extra science emphasis area, and I want to change the length of issue to intermediate. So I'm going to click save now. And I'm going to find my critical issue, so webinar, and 3.5. And this is the one that we updated, right? So remember when we first created it, it said test webinar 4.0. We changed the title to 4.5. And down here, we added the extra science emphasis areas. Are there any questions around how to update a critical issue? Joy?
Real quick, Jen, it's Alexis. I just wanted to chime in because I got a couple good questions here. I think people can see them, but just want to make sure. So Christian asked what roles can update critical issues. So great question, and apologies if we didn't cover this previously, but it'll be state contributor and director. So if you're an organizational administrator and you don't have the state contributor role and you need to update critical issues, you're going to want to change that. Go ahead and grab that state contributor role so that you have the access. And then Julian asked what the deadline this year is for critical issues. We really want to move to having critical issues updated as part of the plan of work process. So please try to aim to get them done by September 1st, just so that everything's done, concurrently. If you have any questions, if you have any issues, just contact us and we'll work with you.
Thank you, Alexis. Were there any other questions that you wanted to address that came up, Alexis?
I've been answering them in the Q&A in the chat, so
Okay,
I think we're okay.
okay, cool. All right. All right, next up, I want to close out a critical issue. How do I close out a critical issue? I identify my critical issue. Once I find it, I go to the critical issue card and I click close out. Once I click close out, the closeout critical issue pop up. The closeout critical issue form, I guess you can kind of say it pops up. And then I'm going to scroll down and I say, and I have here the closeout critical issue button. So I'm going to select closeout critical issue. And once I do that, it should actually state close out critical issue FY 2023. So let me go ahead and search for that. Yep, so this is closing out fiscal year 2023. Are there any questions around how to close out a critical issue?
We actually got a question prior. Will the associated projects stay connected when the critical issues are updated?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not at this time.
Hey,
Fantastic.
Joy, I have one I want to just mention, and I don't know, Jen, if this is one to take back or if Aaron's on the line, but just noting that a couple people have mentioned to me that they're unable to see the buttons to close out, update, add. So I don't know if any comments on that.
That's probably,
yeah.
Sorry, Alexis.
No, it's okay. I'm just clarifying on their side when they're logged in, they're not able to see it. So I just wanted to note that.
Is it because, now I have another question to that then. Is it because, are they going to the POW or are they going to the critical issues? Because if they're going to the critical issues, they're not going to see those buttons.
So to clarify, you're talking about the plan of work link at the top here, or the plan of work tile is how they need to enter in to see the view of the cards with these buttons. Is that what you're talking about, Jen?
Correct.
Just
Yes.
clarify. Okay.
Yes. If you want to, if you want to add a critical issue, update a critical issue, or close out a critical issue, you need to go to the plan of work tile and click manage and have that say contributor and director role. Because if you go to the critical issue dashboard, you're just going to see the critical issue cards. Does that make sense?
Yes, we had someone acknowledge that they were on the dashboard. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. All right, so then this is the last one, I think, for the day. To reactivate a critical issue, you again identify the critical issue that you want to reactivate. Obviously, it has to be closed right for you to reactivate it. And then the way that you would do that is identify the critical issue, like I stated before, click the reactivate button, and it'll actually revert the critical issue card back to what it was before you closed it out. So let's take a look at that. And here it is. Any questions around how to reactivate a critical issue?
We have had a request for you to quickly demo how to add a critical issue again.
Sure. Adding a critical issue again. I just logged into the system. I need to add a critical issue. I click manage on the POW plan of work tile. It'll take me to the plan of work dashboard. I'll click on the POW, the link, and it'll take me to the manage critical issues page. Once it takes me to the manage critical issues page, I'm going to scroll all the way down. I'm going to find my add new button and click add new. And from here, you're just going to enter data. I'm just going to copy and paste in for the description. And then click save. From here, you're going to find your critical issue. And this is the one that we just created together.
Does changing a critical issue change it across the system, across all years? Or are there different versions of the critical issue for each year? This came from Norma, and she might have to elaborate that question. I'm not sure.
I think we'll probably need a little more details there. But if I'm interpreting the question correctly, I think what she's asking is, if I update it here, if I update this critical issue, will I see that in other modules and in other parts of NRS? Is that right? For example, if I were to update this critical issue now, would a project or program that has this critical issue be updated with the updated version of that critical issue? Right?
And we have Craig who wants to acknowledge something regarding that question. Norma, please let us know if you'd like to come off mute and address that.
Sure, thank you. I might be understanding Norma's question in a sense of, if you update a critical issue, will it retroactively go back and update a critical issue that you may have reported on already in the annual report, for example? Is that correct, Norma? Is that what you're asking?
She stated that is correct.
Okay. Okay. So, yep. So we're going to be working on, when we introduce this functionality, we'll be adding functionality that your update to the critical issues will, if you are associating or creating a new, or reassociating projects, will not affect closed out projects or reported on projects. So if you had a critical issue that was critical issue ABC that you reported on in your 2022 annual report, that's the version of that critical issue that will hold with your annual report. If you update that critical issue and it's slightly different, and you include that in your 2023 annual report, for example, that version of the critical issue will hold with your 2023 annual report. So we are doing versioning on the critical issues for reporting purposes.
Thank you, Craig.
There are a couple questions in the Q&A as well about, what happens when you close out a critical issue, what happens to the projects and programs. And I don't want to be repetitive based on, Craig, what you were talking about, but just want to say again, we recommend that if you close out a critical issue, right now you don't take action to reassign those projects and programs to another critical issue. What we're recommending is that you hold off until the 2022 annual report is complete. And you'll be able to view projects and programs with the future release that's coming. You'll be able to view all projects and programs that do not have a critical issue. So you will be able to reassign them, but we're recommending that you hold off so that way, once the 22 annual report of accomplishments is complete, it will be displaying what you want it to display. Because again, right now we're thinking a year in advance with the 23 plan of work. And then the annual report is always a year behind. So it gets a little confusing, at least for me, because you're working across 3 years, essentially, because you will report on the 22 accomplishments. You're right now giving us information future for 23, and all the while putting in projects and programs along the way. So we are going to put out FAQs. We are available if you have questions and you start going in to update your critical issues. But just wanted to note again that we recommend holding off on trying to reassign everything until you complete your annual report.
Thank you, Alexis. We have one more question I don't think we've touched on, and that's about the display of the critical issues. Jen, can you speak to the order? They're asking, is it listed alphabetically, or what's the order as far as the plan of work goes? Thank you.
Yeah, so it's actually listed in alphabetical order. That was a very short answer. I noticed that. I just don't know what else to say.
And Julie, if you need to elaborate further, because you mentioned something about the order, but thank you.
I like to be short and sweet. Any other questions?
No, not at this time.
Okay, well then I'm going to turn it back to you, Joy. Thank you so much to everyone that came to, be here with us today and take the time out of their day to really understand what we released last week. Bye. We'll stop sharing.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate, as Jen said, you all coming. For those of you who joined late, we just discussed the NIFA review for the 2023 plan of work, and we received that demo. So we will provide clarification on your questions, FAQs, the recap, and the recorded webinar shortly. We want to let you guys go and enjoy the rest of your day. We appreciate you for attending and thank you so much. We will see you in September. Bye-bye.